Kia ora and warm greetings. Thank you for joining us on Baha'i On Air. This very special episode will focus on the remarkable life and works of Baha'i architect Mr. Hossein Amanat. One of his many unique designs is the jewel of the Pacific, the Baha'i House of Worship in Samoa. The Baha'is of Samoa recently celebrated 2 anniversaries. 50 years since the Baha'i faith was introduced to Samoa, and 20 years since the dedication of their beautiful house of worship. One of the many guests from around the world who attended the celebrations was Mr. Hossein Amanat from Canada. The Baha'i On Air crew was given an exclusive interview with Mr. Amanat at the Samoan House of Worship, where he discusses the history of this extraordinary building and shares with us his spiritual views of art, architecture, and humankind. Enjoy.
The concept of the Baha'i temple or the Baha'i house of worship is first referred to by Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the faith, in Kitab Aqdas, in his book. And he refers to these temples to be built in the most beautiful way. And which I think is very important. The beauty is important. He refers to it as Mashruqul Asgar, that means the dawning place of the mention of God. In the Baha'i writings, you find references to some institutions which will be around this temple, acting as this center of activity, and all around it there will be institutions like centers of learning or centers of healing, hospitals, or houses for the elderly, and other functions which are most social functions. Which somehow, to me, is a reference that our social activities have some priority. They should always look towards one spiritual aim, as the Baha'is think that there is a spiritual purpose to life rather than a material purpose to life.
It's a beautiful building. As with all Baha'i houses of worship, it has a dome and 9 entrances. It symbolizes the unity of all religions and all peoples. That is the central purpose of the Baha'i faith. This first Baha'i house of worship in the South Pacific Ocean is perched on the mountainside behind Apia, the capital of Western Samoa.
I'm Iranian, and from my mother's side, I'm 4th generation Baha'i. From my father's side, I'm 3rd generation Baha'i. Excellence of education and art and science were always emphasized. Of course, the Baha'i faith has a great emphasis on beauty, on creativity. All these perhaps have had something to do with my training.
Hossein Amanat now lives and works in Vancouver, Canada.
The architect describes how it feels as a Persian to erect a beautiful house of worship while his fellow believers are being so unjustly persecuted in Iran.
It's very difficult to describe my feeling in this respect, but it reminds me of a very famous prophecy of Baha'u'llah about the persecution of his followers in his native land. He says, if they attempt to conceal my faith in the continent, it will rear its head in the midmost of the ocean. And it is really what has happened. You know, this project was a part of a plan by the Baha'i World Center. That means the World Administrative Center of the Faith had decided to build a temple in Samoa. And I was told that maybe I should show some of my sketches about different concepts that I had for this temple, which I had done very casually, to see if any of them would be of favor. And based on that, the World Center, here we call it Universal House of Justice, which is the international body of the faith, They asked me to seriously do this design, and I came up with this design, which is now built. In fact, after I think 3 years.
Mr. Amanat has designed many beautiful structures around the world, beginning with some of the most prestigious modern buildings in Iran, including the Freedom Monument in Tehran. It has become a symbol of modern Iran. His creative works now include buildings in Canada, United States, and China. In addition, he has created outstanding projects for the Baha'i Faith in many countries, which include the striking buildings for the Administrative Center for the Baha'i World.
The World Administrative Center of the Baha'i Faith is located in Haifa, Israel. Reason is that the prophet founder of the Baha'i Faith was exiled in about 150 years ago, 140 years ago, to Ottoman Empire, and the Ottomans imprisoned him in Akko, near Haifa, in Palestine, now Israel. And the family stayed there, and the Baha'i World Center happens to be there in Holy Land. This center is a complex of 5 buildings. One of them is not built yet. That's the archives building. That building was already built. It was finished in 1957. The first one I was involved with in about 1972 is the seat of Universal House of Justice, which is at the center of the garden, which is arc-shaped. That's at the apex of this arc is this building. And then the archives is at one side. The Baha'i International Library will be at the other side. And there are other 2 buildings. One is the Center of the Study of the Text, and the other one, International Teaching Center.
Welcome to Samoa, the midmost of the ocean.
These beautiful buildings are for people of all faiths to gather together and worship their Creator. In his holy tablets, Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i Faith, called the Baha'i houses of worship the dawning place of the mention of God. Services are simple and spiritual, consisting of prayers and meditations that are read aloud, sung, or chanted, all from the sacred scriptures of the Baha'i Faith and other great religions.
One of the common features of all the Baha'i houses of worship is that they are nine-sided. Here, the building is nine-sided, and it has a dome which is really a symbol of unity, because these 9 entries means entrances from different understandings and beliefs, which are united under this dome. It somehow keeps with the main idea of the Baha'i faith, which is unity of mankind. So here I had the same idea to put into shape and form, and the 9 portals are there, and then above them is this dome, which, because of being in the context of Samoan culture, it has a fale shape. As you know, they are going like this, somehow first straight and then curving this way. The geometry of the dome is created by these 9 panels, which creates about 18 ribs on each side. And these ribs, which have glazing in between, they weave at the top in an interesting pattern, which is a Persian pattern. This pattern, which is at the very top of the dome and lets the light in, has some reference to Persian architecture and some reference to where the Baha'i faith originated and where Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the faith, was born. And the message started from there.
I brought the design to show it to His Highness Malioto. He was very happy to see the design, and he liked it very much. And he was back from a trip in China. He told me, I think the faith of Baha'u'llah will spread in the world, especially in China, and you will make hundreds of these temples all over China. And his kindness and support always continued for this building. He used to pay visits many times to see the progress of the work. It was a very dear building for him. And of course, when the building was dedicated, he was here, and it was a memory that none of the people who were there would ever forget.
There is a traditional Samoan ceremony called sua in honor of those attending the dedication. Through song, dance, and customary gifts, the Baha'is of Samoa show their respect for the distinguished guests and the Baha'i visitors from many lands. A song written for the occasion tells the story of the construction of the house of worship. A Samoan talking chief announces the presentation of customary gifts that are symbols of honor and respect. Food and drink and roasted pigs are presented with traditional courtesy in a ceremony passed down for generations. The representatives of governments, the churches, the builders of the temple, and Baha'i communities around the world are all thanked in this way. Beautiful fine mats are included in the presentation. The Maliator also receives an inlaid telephone and a model of the house of worship given to His Highness by the Universal House of Justice.
In case you just joined us on Baha'i on Air, we are featuring Baha'i architect Mr. Hossein Amanat. He has designed many unique buildings around the world, including the Jewel of the Pacific, the Baha'i House of Worship.
There is hardly anything added to the structure of this building. It's the pure structure that you see. The ribs are what is meant for the body of the building. It's the bones of the building. And the glass is in between the ribs, letting the light in. When the days are clear, you can see the movement of the clouds through these ribs. And it's as if you have a moving stained glass.
You look up and you see the clouds moving in the beautiful sky of Samoa. And it's as if you are in heaven, or at least I am. but I have many times felt that. When the prayers are being said and you look up, it's as if you are somewhere up there.
It's the day of the dedication. His Highness Malietoa Tanumafili II, the head of state, arrives at the temple gardens. His Highness has, for many years, yearned to see the Baha'i temple completed.
But the view is very open. You see the beautiful gardens around the temple while you are praying. And this, I think, is very unique about this temple. It somehow brings the beauty of Samoa, which is unique to this land, inside the temple. It somehow captures it. And I like this aspect of the design.
The wood in this temple is the hardwood of Samoa, Ifilele, from Sabai. And I never forget the trip. 20 years has passed, no movement in this wood, and it is really great. As beautiful the texture you see created by wood in the Fale domes, that I love very much. I couldn't do a wooden dome for this temple because it should have been a durable material that would not catch fire because of a mistake and would stay here for hundreds of years. And that's why concrete for this weather is the best, for this climate, is the best medium to work with.
These ribs on the body of the building, they are all concrete, but they are white concrete because I didn't want dark gray concrete in the temple. I wanted light. Baha'i temple is kind of somehow obsessed with light. They want a lot of light. It is the century of light.
The cement is from New Zealand. The contractor was from New Zealand. And the granite outside, which is a kind of reddish pink granite, that is from Australia. The tiles on the floor of the temple are from Germany. The glass, which is a very modern way of putting the glass on the dome, is from Canada. It's from Vancouver. The contractor came from Vancouver.
I'm very kind of glad that we ended up using the stone of another island in Pacific to raise this temple in this island. So these aggregates of these concretes are white and they are from Niue. The labor is from Samoans, and the wood, the hardwood, is Ifilele from Samoa, which has aged very well. This is 20 years past, and they look beautiful, no problem. The glazing, which is a high-end type of glazing that we did, is a structural glazing, which has been carried on the dome, so that there is not much frames from outside. It's only glass against the concrete.
Let the religions agree and make the nations one, so that each may see each other as one family.
During these ceremonies, I was so delighted that we had 5 choirs from Fiji and Samoa, American Samoa, and Tonga, and New Zealand, and Australia. Each of them were in one of these alcoves on the mezzanine, upper mezzanine. You didn't see the choir people, so you are not distracted. But you hear this heavenly voice coming out. And the acoustics for choir was ideal, I thought. I was so delighted that it worked so well. Usually the domes are not very good spaces for good acoustics. But here it just happens that it works very well. So that is, I think, another good aspect of the temple, the way it has ended up to be. This temple has its mezzanine, which allows for more capacity, of course, but you can have 9 groups of choirs above here, or even more. It is quite nice. The benches are deliberately designed very simple. They are not elaborate. They were all manufactured in New Zealand with the local hardware, then shipped over here. That's another kind of simple aspect of the temple. I have tried to keep everything very, very simple. The dome itself is just very simple, white against the very green of the hill. You know, the idea of simplicity has always been there. It comes from the way the Samoans are and they live.
The dedication takes place in the presence of many Baha'is and invited guests.
I am further moved to express our gratitude to the supreme body of Baha'i faith, the Universal House of Justice, for choosing Western Samoa to be the recipient of such a gift. My sincere and warmest expression of thanks goes to the members of the Baha'i faith all over the world, both high and low, who have given so generously of their resources.
But I want to tell you something that I really felt I am in family. From the very first day here, all the Baha'is here, they considered me, I felt that as a part of the family, like a brother or sister. And I have always been feeling that way. When I'm in Samoa, I feel I'm in a second home. Coming here is always a happy occasion, especially for the 20th year of this temple. I was very happy to look at the temple and to see that it has stayed just about new and it hasn't really deteriorated as such. They have looked after it very well and it had aged very well. The lava stones
at the entry to the basement. They are from Sabai. Of course, more important was to be in between the Baha'i friends from all over the world who had come from different countries. This was very, very interesting. From the moment I arrived here, the beauty of Samoa has really impacted me very deeply, and Samoan people, because they are very kind, the way they live, their sincerity and purity, and the fact that they showered me with their kindness, and I found myself as the part of them during the experience of building this temple, and we formed a lot of friends here. So coming back here was very, very happy occasion that I was seeing those old people again, or those old friends.
It has been a great honor and bounty from Baha'u'llah that I was involved as the architect of this temple. Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this special episode of Baha'i on Air, which has looked at the accomplished Baha'i architect Mr. Hossein Amanat, who designed the Jewel of the Pacific, the Baha'i House of Worship in Samoa. He has designed many more extraordinary buildings for the Baha'i faith, including these striking buildings for the administrative center of the Baha'i world, situated on Mount Carmel in Haifa, Israel. His other works are located in several other countries around the globe. Mr. Amanat uses Baha'i principles of transcendence, beauty, and unity, and his global heritage to offer the Baha'i faith and the world structures of spiritual and architectural beauty.